Yo, what's up? What's going on? What's good? Here we are, and this is the December 6th, 2021 episode of the Boxing Source Radio Show. This is James Bell, the leader of the Boxing Source on social media. You could follow us through Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, and also through the YouTube channel, where you could get boxing content, interviews. You could get highlights from press conferences when we're at the fights. Sometimes when we are on assignment. Um, and other things like that. But here on this particular episode, we're going to go over the action that happened over the weekend, and that there was lots of action through the weekend. Particularly, we're going to focus on the lightweight division, as the lightweight division has pretty much been on the spotlight, over these past few weeks. And if you've checked out the um, Twitter account, we posted multiple fights that have happened or are about to happen here over 2021, and there's been a lot of fights there at 135 pounds in the year of 2021, and two of those fights were on the spotlight over the weekend, as you had Devin Haney taking on Joseph Diaz Jr., and you also had Gervonta Tank Davis facing Isaac Cruz. And so we're going to be going over both of these particular bouts in depth, in kind of like decipher what was happening over the course of the fight. I think that, it was, two fairly good bouts that we had over in the MGM Grand Garden Arena in Las Vegas, and also at the Staples Center in Los Angeles. First, wanted to focus on what happened at the MGM Grand Garden Arena in Las Vegas, as you had Devin the Dream Haney go over against Joseph Jojo Diaz Jr. for the WBC lightweight title. You had, of course, the Dream there at 26-0, defending the WBC lightweight title against Joseph Diaz, who was coming in there to get a world title in another weight class. Of course, he had a world title at the super featherweight division, challenged Gary Russell Jr. for the WBC featherweight title, but fell short. But he was able to move up, like I said, to super featherweight, winning the super featherweight title, then ended up moving to lightweight earlier this year. He scored, a win over Javier Fortuna to put him in a position to either, challenge Ryan Garcia this year, or go after this thing here for the WBC lightweight title. Originally, he was slated to face Ryan Garcia in like a final eliminator of sorts for the WBC belt that Devin Haney holds. But, Ryan Garcia, had his, issues, mental issues, or whatever it is. And so that pretty much left Jojo Diaz without a fight. Devin Haney said, "Hey, what's up? What's going on? What's happening? What's up? Got the trunk?" No, I'm just kidding. Um, he went ahead and he offered Jojo Diaz a shot at the WBC lightweight title, and Jojo Diaz took that particular challenge. And so you had Devin Haney there, going off the momentum of his win earlier this year against Jorge Linares. Few people thought that he had a fairly good performance. There were some that kind of like criticized him at the tail end of the fight, where he did get caught with a good right hand at the end of the 10th round, and then kind of like got his way through those last two rounds, trying to clinch Jorge Linares, but didn't necessarily do a good job of that, according to some people. But he wanted to go ahead in this particular bout here against Joe Diaz, and have a more impressive performance here against Diaz. And the thing about it is you had Jojo Diaz there as a shorter fighter, coming up there against Devin Haney. Devin Haney, 5'8", pretty tall there for the lightweight division, with a 71-inch reach. Kind of had like about what, a 7-inch and 9-inch reach advantage from his armpit and end of fist in comparison to Jojo Diaz. So we were looking to see if Devin Haney was going to utilize that to his advantage, and early on he did that. Starting off in the first round, you had JoJo Diaz, coming forward towards Devin Haney with a high guard, and Devin Haney kind of like countered that by boxing off his back foot, using his left hand, for either the jab or to kind of like keep Joseph Diaz at bay. And either he would throw the jab and then follow with the right hand to the body, or he would just leave that left hand out to, push away JoJo Diaz and then just come into the body, hit him with that right hand, and just continue to score, continue to score. With JoJo Diaz, his, style about getting to the inside, working the body, then going upstairs later on. That was his plan here in this fight against Devin Haney. But it did take him a good amount of time for that to happen. While Devin Haney just picked off or picked each of the spots or the openings that were available to him for him to throw punches. So he was kind of like fairly efficient in throwing the shots that he did throw against JoJo Diaz, particularly in those first few rounds. You really didn't see much activity coming from JoJo Diaz until he really got close to Devin Haney. He was trying to get Devin Haney to the ropes, and once he got him to the ropes, then he unloaded on his offense as far as like trying to get himself up there and going to try to get back into the fight. But for me, I mean, I felt like he kind of like executed the game plan to the point where he wanted to try to wear Devin Haney down. And in some instances, it was working for him. He was kind of scoring punches to the body, and then landed the left hand upstairs. But it didn't look like he was very active as far as like throwing the amount of punches in comparison to Devin Haney. But the show, the punch stats kind of like seemed like it was almost nearly even through about 8 rounds or so there with Devin Haney and JoJo Diaz. But I just seen like Devin Haney be calm, cool, collected in most instances. But there were times where he did, end up making mistakes, leaving himself open to the left hand, not, keeping his right hand up there for Diaz to come over the top with the left hand. But it wasn't anything to where, you really seen Devin Haney in that much trouble. So he went through, those 12 rounds, like I said, with the approach of, just keeping the distance, making sure that JoJo Diaz didn't get to the inside that often to really affect him. And, he ended up getting that unanimous decision, 2 scores of 117, 111, 1 score of 116, 112 to, retain that WBC lightweight title. And I feel like, he kind of like did what he needed to do in order to, get the win, get the job done, and kind of like say, okay, this is what I'm able to do. I'm able to use my boxing skill, my ability to get myself out of trouble at times, and kind of like just say that I'm good enough to face a lot of these guys here in the lightweight division. Some may have criticized the way that he kind of like went about the middle to late rounds as far as like leaving openings for JoJo Diaz, where you kind of like seen him get caught with those left hands, as mentioned before, and times where he got himself tied up, where he could have just unloaded while he had enough spacing to really put a hurting on JoJo Diaz. Even though JoJo Diaz has the not just the pro experience but the amateur experience, of course. Being there, what is it, Olympic team, great amateur career, then going from amateur to the pros, building up a great record up until he faced Gary Russell Jr. and up to that point, that was his lone loss in his professional career. So this was, slated as a fairly good challenge there for Devin Haney. But there were a few things there that some may think that he needed to work on in this particular instance. So I kind of like seeing that uh, he did fairly well. Um, Maybe he had like some adjustments that he could have made that he didn't quite make. Um, and the thing about it is that he'll learn over time. I think that he'll learn over time that he'll need to adjust as far as like how especially with Jojo Diaz being a southpaw, like how he would fight against a southpaw, particularly against one other fighter that we will be mentioning later here in this particular podcast, that he has to kind of like watch out for things when you're dealing with southpaws, especially when they try to set up for the left hand to connect on him. And for me, I just feel like he has to keep that right hand up in order to nullify most of what that left hand is there to bring. Now he was able to do that to a certain extent against Jojo Diaz, but you know there's like a couple, or I would say one particular fighter that is a southpaw that's pretty fast, to say the least. But I don't think that particular fight would happen anytime soon, as after what happened on Saturday went down, Devin Haney was talking about being the WBC lightweight champion. Of course, we know about what happened in the previous week there with George Kambosos Jr. defeating Teofimo Lopez for the unified lightweight titles. That topic came up for Devin Haney, and he said, "You know what? Let's do it. Like I'm willing to, go to Australia to do it next, to have the real undisputed, happen. You know, thing about it is like all that time that you had Teofimo Lopez and Devin Haney talking back and forth, chatting back and forth, you know, um, talking trash as far as like, okay, who would be out there as far as like who would kind of like stand out as that top lightweight. Well, it was just a matter of which fighter could handle their business first. We saw that Teofimo Lopez was not able to handle his business against George Kambosos, but Devin Haney was able to handle his business against Jojo Diaz. And now with George Kambosos, he's had his, American tour after becoming the unified lightweight champion. He was there in attendance at the MGM Grand. And him and his father George Kambosos Sr., I think, along with Peter Kahn, manager for George Kambosos. Of course, you have the promoter there, Lou DiBella, as well, that is involved with George Kambosos. They're trying to position themselves to see what would be next for Kambosos in 2022. Devin Haney trying to put his name in the hat as far as like him being next. Do we know if Devin Haney would be able to go to Australia to fight George Kambosos next? Who knows? You have the travel restrictions there over in Australia, where anybody that comes outside of Australia has a mandatory 2-week quarantine. So if any fighter was planning on going over there, you will be locked down for like 2 weeks, and that really can't work as far as like having proper preparation for a fight, especially a fight of this magnitude against George Kambosos. So if the travel restrictions get minimized a little bit, have more leniency, then maybe we could have a fight between Devin Haney and George Kambosos Jr. There for the undisputed lightweight titles. The other thing is that we kind of like seen the interaction between Devin Haney and his head trainer, his father, Bill Haney. There were a couple of things that Bill Haney was teaching them or telling them in between rounds. Maybe they interpreted well, maybe they didn't, but the buzz was like maybe uh, Bill might have to kind of like tone things down a little bit, especially when you have Mickey Bay as one of the assistants and you have Ben Davison as your chief second. That maybe Devin could learn a little bit more under the tutelage of a Ben Davison, having like a Ben Davison be like his full time head trainer or something like that, and then have Bill Haney be more of like a manager or something like that. There, like I heard that Bill Haney kind of like tries to ease himself back a little bit when it comes to the dealings for Devin Haney, but as far as like in the ring, that is yet to be seen. So with Devin Haney, man, I mean, I think that some people feel like he could be the one that stands out as the top lightweight. Um, but he did have this particular fight here against Jojo Diaz. He did have his fight against Jorge Linares. Those were two fights there that were kind of like two different styles a little bit. You had Jorge Linares that's very efficient in his punches, does know a lot of things. He's been in the ring for a long time veteran. But you also have Jojo Diaz that's had a lot of fights. They're in the professional level and also in the amateur level as well. So it gave Devin Haney a couple of learning experiences to a certain extent, that it might help him out here in the long run, particularly in 2022, where hopefully we build on the momentum of the amount of fights that we've had at 135 pounds, uh, to like kind of like build on having more big fights or bigger, better fights at 135 pounds there. So, with Devin Haney getting this win over Jojo Diaz, he moves to 27-0 with 15 knockouts on his record, but he gets that decision win over Jojo Diaz. Jojo Diaz falls to 32 wins, 2 losses, and 1 draw. So, like I said, Devin Haney's like looking forward to trying to get himself in the mix there at the top of the lightweight division. Maybe with the fight against George Kambosos, if they're able to arrange to have it in Australia, or they might have it in Las Vegas or something like that. So it remains to be seen how that's going to go down. Also, part of that fight card that was at the MGM Grand Garden Arena, you had Montana Love get a third round stoppage victory over Carlos Diaz. That was like his first fight there under the Matchroom Boxing banner. He is now 17-0-1. You also had the Casquilla take on Candy Wyatt. Candy Wyatt was there as a replacement opponent, but Jessica McCaskill handled her business, was able to defend her undisputed welterweight titles, and get a TKO victory over Candy Wyatt. It was, I'm telling you, if you ain't seen that fight, and like Jessica McCaskill was lighting Candy Wyatt up with a lot of punches there. I was kind of like surprised that it took like 7 rounds for the referee to step in to have that fight stop. But that was the business of it. And Jessica McCaskill, defending those undisputed welterweight titles. Maybe there's a few big fights out there for her in 2022 that remains to be seen, whether fighters move up from super lightweight or lightweight to challenger there at 147 pounds. I know that you have Chantel Cameron versus Callie Race. I think that's for the undisputed world title at 140. And at 135, you had an undisputed champion there with Katie Taylor that, has a fight coming up, who, may end up fighting, uh, you know, um, Amanda Serrano in 2022. But after all that's sorted out, you might have the winners of those respective fights fighting each other, and you might have, a whole new pound for pound discussion there in women's boxing. So that also remains to be seen in 2022. You also have Philip Hergovich get a third round TKO win over Amir Amanovich. Yeah, Hergovich, beat him up, uh, in the second round. Uh, had him down to one knee twice at round two, and then another one where he went down to one knee in round three, and that was it for Amir Matovich. Mo Williams got a second round TKO victory over Cortavious Cash. Mo Williams is now 9-0. Cortavious Cash falls to 14-3. And you had likes of Amari Jones, who was a protege of Devin Haney. He was able to get a TKO victory in this fight card as well. So you had a whole lot of action there that was at the MGM Grand Garden Arena in Las Vegas, headlined by Devin Haney's win over Jojo Diaz to retain the WBC lightweight title. You got to see if he'll be able to, get back at it next year, potentially against George Kambosos. But if not, then there might be a couple of other fights that could be possible for him there in 2022. But Devin Haney is like really looking for, that one fight against a top 5 fighter there in the lightweight division that would kind of like, define him as the guy that's at the top there at 135 pounds. But on the flip side, you do have the thing where you're at the Staples Center in Los Angeles, Showtime pay-per-view event, headlined by one of the biggest stars in the sport of boxing, Gervonta Tank Davis, defending the WBA regular version of the 135-pound title there against Isaac Cruz Gonzalez, with Isaac Cruz there as another top 10 lightweight. Came into this bout with a record of 22 wins, 1 loss, and 1 draw. Had ridden a long streak of victories since his last loss was back in 2016 over in Mexico City. But he's had a string of victories there over in Mexico for a long time, then scored wins, over in Brooklyn, Philadelphia, San Antonio. He was part of the undercard for Tank Davis versus Leo Santa Cruz. He was part of that card. Had wins over Jose Romero and Francisco Vargas this year to set himself up for a fight against Gervonta Tank Davis, where he ended up being a replacement over Rolando Romero, as Tank Davis was slated to face Rolando Romero, but with the legal issues that were taking place with Rolando Romero, he was scratched out of that bout, and they entered in Isaac Cruz. Tank Davis had his fight over in the State Farm Arena in Atlanta against Mario Barrios. Ended up getting a stoppage victory in the 11th round. That was a very high action event there at the end of June of this year. And then, he carried this momentum over to this particular date that was yesterday over at the Staples Center in Los Angeles. And you had, a lot of stars out there, coming out. He had the Irvin Magic Johnson out there. You had Kevin Garnett out there. You had Paul Pierce out there. Former champ Caleb Plant was out there. George Kambosos, like I said, unified lightweight champion, went from Las Vegas over to Los Angeles to watch this fight. You had, a few other stars out there. Like I said, they said Lil Durk was out there, introducing Gervonta Tank Davis, or he was there with the ring walk. So you had a good amount of stars out there that were coming out to see this particular fight with Gervonta Tank Davis and Isak Cruz. Um, a lot of the fans that did come in attendance pretty much was looking to see if Gervonta Tank Davis would be able to keep his knockout streak alive. He did have, 25 victories, with 24 of those victories by way of knockout coming into this particular fight against Isak Cruz. But Isak Cruz was, like I said, coming in there as a top 10 lightweight, had been very fairly active there in 2021, had two fights, this year leading into this particular bout. So he was coming in there. He was ready. He had already, been in camp, slated to, face another opponent outside of Tank Davis. But when he got the call that he would be Tank Davis's opponent, pretty much like, changed his regimen to, go after somebody like a Tank Davis. And in this in the first round, he showed that he was not intimidated one bit by Tank Davis. Went right at Tank pretty much from the get go, going with the right hands, with the lunging right hands or right hooks, like he was what is it, like a mini Tyson was what they were calling them, leading into this particular fight. He pretty much did the lunging, a right hook, like a Mike Tyson, early. And thing was, you had Tank Davis. He pretty much had to make the adjustments. It was one of those weird times where Tank Davis was the taller fighter with the longer reach. So instead of being like more of an aggressor in this particular case, or someone that stands in the pocket and throws his shots and gets his shots off, he was more fighting off the back foot, deciphering what Isak Cruz was doing, and then reacting from that. So initially, he weathered the punches that were coming from Isak Cruz, and then reacting to that, countering with the left hand over the top or the left uppercut. Also coming in with the right hook, but also throwing in the jab a little bit. And that was kind of like his approach in this particular fight, was to, kind of like show his overall boxing skill, that, with him being the taller fighter with the longer reach, that, he could definitely gauge the spacing between him and Isak Cruz. And that with Isak Cruz, if he wasn't able to, set his power shots up with a jab, then when he does go for the power shots, that he would end up missing, or that they would be blocked. And so you kind of like seen that a lot in those first few rounds, was that Tank Davis was, being precise with his punches, very efficient with his punches, and kind of like catching Isak Cruz a little bit there with counter shots when Isak Cruz was trying to come in. But Isak Cruz was scouting. It looked like he was scouting what Tank Davis was doing, because you seen early on in the fight that Tank Davis was trying to catch Isak Cruz with the left uppercut counter, but Isak Cruz was ready for that, kind of like nullified the power of that left uppercut for a little bit by Gervonta Tank Davis, and that's why you kind of like seen him still coming forward, still coming at Tank Davis there over the course of the 5th through the 7th rounds. Now, even though it looked like Tank Davis was, racking rounds up, you still saw Isak Cruz still going in there, still sticking with his game plan, coming forward, trying to cut off the ring. And then once he was able to get Tank Davis to the ropes, then he would work the body, and then after Tank Davis would try to get himself off the ropes, then you would see Isaac Cruz try to come upstairs there with the right hand. Now there were a couple of times where it seemed like um, Tank Davis tried to throw the punch to the body, continue to throw punches to the body, and also try to, I would say, utilize his strength there against Isaac Cruz. There were a couple of times where the referee that was there, Thomas Taylor, kind of like gave Tank Davis a couple warnings, a little bit, not to really push off there against Isaac Cruz. But even with that, you saw that Isaac Cruz kind of got himself back into the fight, mainly because of what happened with Gervonta Tank Davis. He had suffered an injury to his knuckles on his left hand, so over the course of the fight, you've seen that he couldn't really use that left hand that much, and so with that being said, he had to make the adjustment as far as like trying to get himself around what Isaac Cruz was doing, utilize the right jab a little bit more, try to use that as a defensive mechanism instead of an offensive mechanism, and score points that way. Either try to throw the right jab or throw the right hook or go down to the body with the right. That was, that ended up being like the strategy there for Tank Davis over the tail ends of this particular fight, while he was trying to weather the storm of Isaac Cruz that was, continuing to come at him, you know. Um, and with that being said, after 12 rounds of action, I mean, we didn't see any knockdowns. It didn't seem like either fighter was seriously hurt, but it got through with those 12 rounds, and Carla Caiz and Max DeLuca scored about 115 to 113, and Zachary Young scored about 116 to 112, all in favor for Tank Davis for him to retain that WBA lightweight title. And he goes to 26-0 with the 24 KOs. It's Isaac Cruz's second loss of his professional career. So he is now 22 wins, 2 losses, and 1 draw. I pretty much, felt like it was a good performance from both fighters, good tactical performance from both fighters, as you kind of like seeing Tank Davis, show, like I said, show an element that not many may have seen from him before. That he could fight off the back foot, he could gauge the distance against his opponent, and then pick him off or counter while being on the back foot and not get himself in too much trouble when he gets to the ropes. While you had on the flip side, you had Isaac Cruz, kind of like do bob and weave a little bit to try to mess up the timing of Tank Davis. But I kind of like seen that it happened for like a couple of times, but he wasn't very consistent with that. Um, and that might have been a factor, particularly in the first half of the fight, because I thought that Tank Davis racked up a lot of rounds in that first half of the fight. Pretty much like had the bout around that same range, around like 116 to 112. Particularly because over the first 7 rounds of the fight, I had Tank Davis winning 5 of those 7 rounds. So, with that being said, I even gave him the advantage, particularly in the last round, 12th round, even when he only used his right hand in that particular round, he still was able to score better than Isaac Cruz, there. But I kind of like feel like it was a very close fight. I know that some may criticize Tank Davis in this sense, in that he wasn't able to score the knockout against Isaac Cruz, and people were saying, "Oh, this is a small guy, Eastside Cruz. Who is he?" And those that were around this fight, making this fight happen, they pretty much said, "Look, Eastside Cruz is a top 10 lightweight, and he's been in the ring there, and like I was saying, he had those string of victories, consecutive victories that he was having, and that you know and that he was building momentum with the fights that he was having, and he was fighting very actively. Like when you have a fight that was last October there in San Antonio, then have two fights after that, uh, then you pretty much get yourself in a rhythm and in a gear that maybe other fighters might not have. In comparison with Tank Davis, where you have Tank Davis, like I said, one of the biggest stars in the sport of boxing. There as far as like being visible to the eyes of the public in a sense that maybe some people might think that he isn't necessarily focused on, getting himself ready or getting himself up for this particular fight against Eastside Cruz. But if y'all seen leading into this fight, especially with the All Access that was on Showtime, that he got himself over in Fort Lauderdale, you know away from probably any much distractions that may happen around the Las Vegas area or in Baltimore. Even though he brought his team over from Baltimore down to the Fort Lauderdale area to get himself comfortable and to get himself ready to go there against Isak Cruz. So with that being said, he kind of did have a very good performance, and it just looked like he kind of like studied uh, the strategy of Isak Cruz and pretty much executed what he needed to execute, up until the point of him having that hand injury there to his left hand. And, like we were saying after the fight, he heard about two knuckles on his hand, and his coach Calvin Ford said that it may be an MRI scheduled there. So just looking to see any updates on the diagnosis for his left hand, because that could affect the schedule there of Gervonta Davis for 2022. Initially, going into this particular year, he planned on trying to get as much as 3 fights in for 2021, but that didn't necessarily happen. You had, like I said, the fight against Mario Barrios over the State Farm Arena in Atlanta in June, and then this particular fight here against Eastside Cruz at Staples Center. And they're trying to see, like, what would be next for Tank Davis. He pretty much said after the fight with Jim Gray and over in the post-fight press conference that, hey, it's anybody they put in front of him. I know that there's potential matchups between him and Devin Haney, or him and George Kambosos, or him and Ryan Garcia, and he pretty much told Jim Gray, he said, all of them are easy work. All of them are easy work. I'm the top dog in the division. They're easy work. But it just remains to be seen how that will shape up. Leonard Ellaby has stated on multiple occasions that you got Tank Davis being there at the 130 or 135 pound division, and that's where he's going to be for a long while. So it's just gonna be a matter of who's gonna be out there for him to fight in 2022. Now, I want to bring in a guest to this particular episode of the Boxing Source Radio Show. You know him, I know him, the whole world knows him as the former president of the Deontay Wilder fan club. Maybe if Deontay Wilder gets back in the ring, he could reapply for the presidency of the Deontay Wilder fan club. Coming from the Boogie Down Bronx himself, it's MVO, Mr. Matthew Brown. What's good, partner?
Hey, what's going on, JR, man? You know, when can I get back into my position as the president and CEO of the Bomb Squad? This is hurting me, JR.
Well, first we have to get a confirmation that Deontay Wilder will get back in the ring and fight again.
Oh, he
Which,
will,
yeah, I mean he
and
will.
he's gonna be better than ever. By the
Well,
way,
we're gonna see. I mean, he did injure his hand, so we got to have him, recover from that injury, and then once he gets back in the ring, he could, get back in the ring there, and then he may, start his knockout streak once again, and then once that happens, maybe we could get you back in position as the president of the Deontay Wilder fan club.
yeah, we need Fury Wilder 4. I want one more shot, man. One more shot.
Oh man. So Davis versus Cruz, man. Um, what you think about both fighters? I know that Tank, gave Cruz a lot of credit. Pretty much said that they're starting to make it with Isak Cruz, um, and that the injury to his left hand pretty much affected his performance, particularly in the second half of the fight.
Yeah, but Tank beat him with one hand. People got to remember that when they talk about this fight, that man beat a top lightweight who's known for being a heavy hitter with one hand. So shout out to Tank Davis. He did his thing, man. I know a lot of people were waiting to piss on him. They're hoping that they could start a narrative that this was a disappointing performance. But when you understand that Tank Davis like basically put on an exhibition of the sweet science. What do you say the point of boxing is? To hit and not get hit, to not to stand and trade? Well, when the chips was on the line in that 12th round, Tank looked like Floyd out there. And I thought
Mm-hmm.
that was very impressive. I was happy to see that. I was happy to see Tank win a fight with his brain when his hand failed him. And I think that that's going to bode well for the future of Javante Tank Davis.
Well, I mean, you did have Floyd Mayweather in the post-fight press conference, tell the media out there, listen, the name of the game is to hit and not get hit. And I'm proud of Tank. Tank, he went out there and he showed y'all the sweet science of boxing. Listen, I don't know what some of these judges, they got judges out there 75, 80 years old. We need to get them out of the game. I don't know what they're looking at. Listen, I'll be honest. If Tank lost that fight, then I would tell y'all that Tank lost that fight. But he put on a great show, and y'all appreciate him, and I'm sick of it.
Yeah, they don't appreciate him. He's absolutely right because people always assume that he's just this one hitter quitter power puncher. That's it, knockout artist. But he showed different dimensions to his game. He showed that he is not only the most devastating puncher in the division, he's probably the best boxer in the division too.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of like felt that, like you were saying, he gave like a couple of elements of him being like Floyd Mayweather in this particular bout. You know what I mean? Where
Yeah,
he showed like his range, he showed his efficiency as far as like throwing punches, making sure that all of the punches counted. You know what I mean?
yeah, and
Um,
he didn't get caught with nothing stupid.
right. That
You
was
know,
the thing.
everybody gets hit in boxing, but he didn't get caught with nothing stupid. He was so defensively sound. He's what people think, I guess, Devin Haney is. Because Devin Haney's supposed to be this awesome boxer, this guy who's like a great defensive fighter and all this stuff like that. But to me, this past weekend showed that it's really Tank who's the great boxer, the complete fighter. Even better than what people think Devin Haney is.
Yeah, I know that, leading up to this weekend, when I had the conversation with DeMarcus Corley, and he recalled the instance where he had a sparring session with Devin Haney when Haney was 15 years old, and that he thought that Haney had elements of a young Floyd Mayweather, at that particular instance. But here that's what I kind of like seen some glimpses of that, from Tank Davis, where he's able to pick off his opponents, he's able to counter punch with fairly good accuracy, and it's not necessarily him being like a one hitter quitter, but he kind of like accumulates his punches and throws combinations fairly well to the point where
Yeah.
he ends up hurting a lot of his opponents. It's just that in this particular instance with Isaac Cruz, Cruz is a very good opponent and a very tough opponent. I know that I know that you had a comment about Isaac Cruz immediately after the fight when you're talking about how tough his head is or something, but
He got
uh,
a fucking boulder on his shoulders, man.
yeah, he took a good amount of good shots there. Um, but like, what about how Tank, like David said, that like that maybe Eastside Cruz is like a next star in the making. I know that he's from Mexico City, Mexico. He's under Manny Pacquiao Promotions. We did see Sean Knucklehead Gibbons there with him. What about the momentum there for Eastside Cruz? Does this lead to some good fights for him in the future?
Depends on who he fights next. You gotta see what the next move is. I feel like the momentum for Mario Barrios has been stalled a little bit, So it
Yeah.
depends on how soon he gets back in the ring, and it
Mm-hmm.
depends on who he fights next. But if they put some money behind this kid, you have another star in the making. And who knows, down the line, you might see Cruz versus Davis too.
Maybe if they could build up Eastside Cruz for a little bit. If they could match him up well, like the
I would
thing
love
is
to see him
lightweight.
fight JoJo. JoJo was talking shit.
Well, Jojo was calling out everybody after this particular fight. He also said, fuck it, I'll fight a Ryan Garcia next, man.
Yeah.
So it's up in the air, man. You know what I'm saying? With Jojo Diaz. I mean, I kind of like had an idea of who Isaac Cruz could potentially face, but I don't think that they would kind of like do that at this point, and that
Well, who are
is
you thinking about?
Michelle Rivera.
Mm, mm, I don't really like that matchup.
You know, yeah, I kind of like don't either. But they do have like an embarrassment of riches at the lightweight division that
Yeah, they
could
do.
still be more of like a round robin of sorts. It doesn't necessarily have to be the top 5 or 6, but it could be around below that, like 7 to
Yeah, but I feel like
15.
Rivera is on the verge of a title shot. If you look at the mess of the WBA situation,
Yeah, yeah. But we know with the WBA, what they can't necessarily say, "Oh, we want to consolidate belts in the WBA,"
yeah,
because that would be George Kambosos and Tank Davis. So, are they going to try to force the issue with that?
it's a good
Um,
question.
I don't know. It might 2022 might be big for the 135-pound division, but it also could be a big mess for the 135-pound division, depending on how these uh, sanctioning bodies um, work their way into positioning fighters for world title shots. Um, I did talk about the thing there with Devin Haney's win over Jojo Diaz, and that he was saying like, look, he's open to fighting George Kambosos Jr. next. It just depends on what the situation is in Australia, and that if that's good, then yeah, he could go over there and fight George Kambosos, and they could have a fight for the undisputed uh, lightweight titles.
Well, what
But
we learned is that the situation in Australia is winding down, basically,
Yeah.
And starting December 13th, everything's going to be open to foreign travelers.
Yeah, so that may be good news there for Peter Kahn, for Lou DiBella, and for George Kambosos Sr. for a potential matchup between George Kambosos and Devin Haney over there in Australia for the undisputed lightweight titles. Now, with that being said, we still have, some business to take care of at 135 pounds. I know that we got Vasyl Lomachenko versus Richard Comey there. That's coming up at the theater at Madison Square Garden or whatnot. And, depending on what happens in that particular bout, you could have Vasyl Lomachenko trying to be put in position to try to go after those titles. He is there at the top spot for the WBC and WBO at this current juncture. So if he goes in here and he gets this win, he has wins over Nakatani, and then he would have a win over Richard Comey, who beat Jackson Marinez earlier this year. A lot of action at 135, man.
Yeah,
So
definitely a lot of action. But Bob Arum, I guess, came out today and said that he wants to make Lomachenko versus uh, Shakur next if Lomachenko wins.
listen,
I don't know
I
how much
would,
stock you put into that. You think he's bullshitting?
man. I think he's BSing with that. Like, uh,
I
Bob
don't see it.
Arum. This is the same Bob Arum that could made Shakur Stevenson versus Oscar Valdez at 126 pounds and at 130 pounds, and hasn't done it to this particular point.
Well, it
Uh,
seems like they prefer Navarrete to get that Oscar Valdez fight, which is stupid to me because why would we want Navarrete to move up again already?
yeah, he only had like what one or two defenses of that 126-pound title.
Yeah,
And with him moving up and facing Oscar Valdez, it's pretty much the same situation. When Oscar Valdez was the WBO champ at 126, he moves up and then he faces, Miguel Burchelt for the WBC 130-pound title. You know,
yeah,
they should just go ahead and make that fight between Valdez and Stevenson to unify titles at 130. We haven't had a unification bout at 130 in many years. Like, I can't even remember last time we had a unified champ at 130 pounds. But we still have the action at 135. Like I said, we got to see what's going to happen with the performance of Vasyl Lomachenko here against Richard Comey,
yeah,
um, and see how that turns out. But like I said, I mean, a lot of fighters there in the mix at 135. That kind of like I said, man. I mean, I to be honest, I can't remember like where you had so many fights in one particular division that involved like a bunch of guys that were around the top 10, top 15,
yeah,
you know? So, kudos to those fighters there at 135 pounds for, pretty much like saying, hey, we'll fight this guy, we'll fight that guy, we don't care, but, we'll make it happen, Um, going into, last night's fights, the co-feature bout with Sebastian Fundora and Sergio Garcia, with Sebastian Fundora getting the unanimous decision win over Sergio Garcia. That puts him in a position to potentially fight Erickson the Hammer Lubin in a final eliminator for the WBC super welterweight title. And man, uh, we had a little bit of a disagreement when this potential matchup was talked about.
Well, for some reason, you think Lubin gonna beat him.
Yeah, I think so, man.
Well, I'm
I
telling you right now, you're gonna have to change his name from Erickson to Hammer Lubin to Erickson Get Hammered Lubin because Fundora gonna beat the hell out of him.
I don't know, man. He kind of like shown a lot of openings there. I mean, I know that he's there like 6'7" and could probably dunk over everybody if he wanted to. But man, Erickson Lubin has been, working his way back up in the ranks after the first round knockout loss that he suffered there against Mel. So going up against, uh, what is it, Ishe Smith, Nate Gallimore, Terrell Garche, and getting that knockout victory against Jason Rosario over there in Atlanta in June. I think like he's saying like, look, I got this shot, man. I gotta fight these like guys like time after time after time to try to get a world title shot again. And this could be it. This could be it for him, man. And one way or
It should
another,
be it for
depending
him.
on when it's scheduled, it could be for the vacant WBC super welterweight title, depending
Good.
on when it is.
It should be it for him. You know, like, listen, I've never been impressed by Lubin. I don't have anything against the kid. I guess Floyd was giving him big props when they were talking, but I've never been impressed by him. To me, he is straight up and down, no special effects.
Oh no. Oh,
He
he's just
is,
straight.
man.
No special effects. There's nothing, it's nothing, excellent that he does. I mean, he does everything very well. But listen, he gonna get in there and he gonna perform. And I got him over Sebastian Fundora. Listen, I know that guy's 6'7". I know, he should be playing center for the Los Angeles Lakers, but he's in here boxing. I don't understand it. This guy's 154 pounds. He needs to be fighting at heavyweight. He needs to be fighting Wilder at heavyweight. I don't know what's going on. Like, yo, yeah, he got a I guess they're trying to build him as that guy there at 154 pounds, man. It
Yeah,
looks like he's I kind of like said that he was more of like a Navarrete as far as like his level of activity, get himself in the ring, fight multiple times, over the past couple of years. And so, maybe, the fights that he's had kind of like has built him up to a certain extent there to, go up against the likes of Erickson Lubin. So when he does have this fight coming up, depending on when it's scheduled, that he's like, hey, maybe you know, he's going to be ready for this particular moment.
well,
I
we'll
just,
see.
I just thought that, he would have um, kind of like had more fluent, he would be more fluent in his combinations against Sergio Garcia. But,
But
it,
Sergio Garcia's always been awkward.
yeah, yeah,
He
that's
has that
true.
herky jerky motion, like his promoter Sergio Martinez.
Ooh,
I'm
almost
just
slipped.
trying to
Come
figure
on,
out
man.
from what you've seen from Lubin that makes you think. Well,
It
what?
is it's not necessarily more from Lubin. It's more from like Sebastian Fundora, where he leaves himself open to big shots there, and that that could lead to him being in a world of hurt against someone like Erickson Lubin, going over multiple rounds there. So like for me, Fedor would have to work a little bit more on his defense to get himself prepared for Erickson Lubin. But I don't think like he's gonna like have like an offensive onslaught that'll overwhelm Lubin or something like that.
He
Like,
don't need that. All he needs is one shot. We've seen Lubin get taken out by one shot.
and I don't know, man. I just think that like it is like you said, man, it's make or break for Erickson Lubin. And I
Yeah,
think
we'll see.
Erickson Lubin is aware of that and says, yo, I'm not gonna let this kid beat me. So once he steps into the ring, then he's gonna, go all out and show that, he does have the skills in order to, beat someone like
Yeah,
Sebastian Fundora. I just feel like it's gonna be a very good fight. there in that sense.
Well, we'll
Um,
see. Do you think the fight's gonna actually happen? Because I saw Jake Donovan of boxing scene. He's a little skeptical that the fight is actually gonna happen.
man, I don't know, man. Like, you have to see about that because that should be, that should be one fight that people should kind of like wait for. I mean, depending on what happens after February, you know what I'm saying? I think that that kind of like sets up what could be next there in the 154-pound division. You know,
Yeah, I
we
feel
like
like either the IBF or the WBO is next. I don't think the WBC is next in the rotation anyway. So
it's gonna be the IBF because that what was it, Murder Zaliev
yeah,
was due. So they pretty much said like we could go ahead with this rematch as long as the next the next fight is against Backman Murder
yeah,
Zaliev. So there's that. So you have the rematch there in February, and depending on who wins, they would end up fighting Murder Zaliev there if they want to stay at 154 pounds. But if not, if like Charlo wins and he ends up moving to 160, then you have all of those belts vacant. You know.
Well, do you think the belts are gonna become fractured after Charlo versus Castano? Because it doesn't seem like the WBO wants to keep Costa Zeuson waiting for too long either.
Yeah, I don't think they would want him waiting too long either. I don't think these guys are not necessarily acting like your boy Jaime Munguia there at
Yeah.
160. You know, they want to get some action on these belts. So that's why I'm like seeing this to be a point where
Well,
we see what happens with this rematch. I
we'll
mean,
see what happens.
people are demanding the rematch, so they're giving them that rematch there with Jamel Charlo and Brian Carlos Castano, and then after that, they'll pretty much arrange what happens at 154 pounds in due time. Below that fight, you had Derevianchenko against Carlos Adames, where Adames ended up getting the win, uh, majority decision win, one score of 96-94, one score of 97-93, and then one even there. So Carlos Adames may be put in position to fight Jaime Munguia. Um, I don't know. Maybe he is, maybe he isn't. Munguia was talking about, oh yeah, we're in negotiations to fight Sergey Derevianchenko next in a final eliminator for the WBC middleweight title. But now you got now you got Adamas there as a winner. And if I'm not mistaken, I think Jaime Munguia was in attendance there for this particular fight card. So probably was watching that fight,
Yeah,
looking
he
at
was in attendance.
yeah, and he did see Carlos Adames there. We kind of went over this fight a little bit. Adames was kind of like catching Sergey Derevianchenko a few times with counter left hands and stuff like that, but near the end of the fight, it looked like he kind of slowed down a little bit.
Yeah, I would
And
say from like the sixth round on, he looked like he was struggling. Um, I thought the fight could have went either way. I was surprised by the 7-3 scorecard, but with close rounds, if every close round goes to one guy, that's how you get that score. So I wasn't too upset about it. I'm just curious as to what's next for Derevianchenko. We know what's next for Adam is he's either going to get Munguia or he's going to get that Charlo fight straight away. But the question is this the end of Sergey Derevchenko.
I mean, maybe it could be. I mean, even though, like, he only's had 17 professional fights. But he's there at 36 years old, man. 36 years old at middleweight. With 17 professional fights. Maybe there isn't much else out there for him, particularly there in the middleweight division.
Yeah, he
Like,
spent too long beating up them little elementary school kids, man. That's what happens.
I don't know, man. Maybe maybe they could still have him in the rankings, I guess, against Juan Montiel or Hugo Centeno, but maybe they, yeah, I don't know, man. I probably will ask. Hopefully, I could get Lou DeBella, on the mic, and then I'll ask him about Sergey Derevyanchenko to see, maybe what could be in store for him. Because yeah, he's been there around the floating around the 160-pound division, contending for, a world title. He should have got that win over Gennady Golovkin to be the IBF middleweight champ, but they didn't give it to him. So with him falling short there, falling short against Maul for the WBC belt, and now having this loss to Carlos Adames, it's more of like, what else can he do at this point at 160 pounds? Yeah, I just don't see what could be a good option there for him. You know what I mean?
Maybe he should move up to 168 because it seems like his punch resistance is going at 160. Maybe he's having tougher weight cuts at this age.
Yeah, that could be possible. That could be possible. I know that his wife and son were there in attendance for this fight. Maybe they had a talk after this fight to see what his direction would be. Maybe Andre Rozier has an idea of what could be next for him. But yeah, it's just like when you've already had your opportunities at the top of the division and you've fallen short multiple times. It's almost like there isn't much else to go unless if you move up, or you pretty much stuck there in the middle of the pack at the 160-pound division there. So that kind of like covers most of the stuff there that we had in the fight card. I know that Mr. Matt doesn't care about fighters in the super featherweight division, so we're
Nah,
not going to go over that.
nah.
You did have a upset of sorts with Vaughn Alexander getting a split decision win
Oh, come on. Who cares
over
about that?
Luis Arias.
Who gives a damn? Come on, man.
So there was that.
I thought they
Jalil
was
Hackett.
baseball players.
Oh my God. Jalil Hackett, shout out to Jalil Hackett, who did get a victory over Darren Leva there. So we might get Major Hackett probably back on the mic here, a little soon. So there is that. Wanted to revisit the thing here with Las Vegas, man. Looks like they had more JoJo Diaz fans than Devin Haney fans in Las Vegas.
What was it, like 15 fans to 10? Come on, man. There wasn't a lot of fans there in general. Who cares? I just think um, Mexicans are louder, and that's it. They was cheering louder. I didn't feel like there was any raucous crowd there to the point where you could tell who had more fans. I just think, you know, being that the arena was so empty, it's like when they screamed, it was reverberating and echoing throughout the whole arena. You know,
Oh man. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, thing about it is that there's one thing to, kind of like work with a fighter that commands a lot. for their purses, but sometimes you gotta put the responsibility on the promoter and the fighter themselves in order to make themselves attractive enough for people to see them. And so it's one thing, like Leonard Ellaby said, kudos to Devin Haney and DHP, for commanding the money. But as far as like making these large scale fights, we know what your asking price is going to be, and right now at this point you're not really pulling it. So why would we try to make a fight that doesn't make financial sense?
Yeah,
So as far as like a potential fight between Devin Haney and Gervonta Tank Davis, y'all, yeah, there isn't much of a chance that you're going to see that
you know what's
unless,
funny about that though? I've seen a
yeah.
lot of people comparing what Alabi said, basically to what Bob
Wait, hold
Arum
on,
said. Train. Hold
hold on, man, you're fading out.
on. Can you hear me now?
Yeah,
So basically, I found it interesting that these guys were comparing what Leonard Ellaby said to what Bob Arum used to say about Terrence Crawford's potential opponents. But what people don't understand is that we know Devin Haney ain't really drawing a crowd like that. But don't tell me that Terrence Crawford versus Keith Thurman, or Terrence Crawford versus Sean Porter, or Terrence Crawford versus Danny Garcia wasn't going to draw a decent crowd.
yeah, yeah. And the thing about it is that like the money. I'm like it would have made sense for a Crawford and a Garcia, or a Crawford versus a Thurman, you know, to happen. And the thing about it is, in that particular instance, going back to the thing there with Crawford and Porter, is that it looked like they kind of intensely limited themselves for maximizing their profit by setting the price tag for not just the purses, but for the tickets there for that particular fight. Like, if you want to, have your fighter making money, if you want the company to make money off of the fighter, then you got to be able to create the demand big enough so that once you do have the fight and you do set the price, that they still pay that money in order to see them. It's like with Canelo Alvarez. Like, you could go to Vegas, you could set those prices out there where nosebleeds are like $200 to $300, but people will still go out and see them because it's Canelo Alvarez. It's the most popular fighter in the sport of boxing. It's El Campeon, you know, pound for pound guy. And people go out there and they'll pay top dollar to see him. But you got to be able to put in the work so that that particular fighter, he gets himself to the point that people will pay top dollar to see him, you know? So it's like, if I could, in reference to that, just going off that, if you could make a comparison to what the ticket prices were for this fight between Crawford and Porter in comparison to Spence versus Porter, let's see if those ticket prices for Spence versus Porter were at a higher price point and then still got a higher gate than what Crawford versus Porter got.
Yeah.
You know?
So I think that's what people miss about what Leonard Alabi was saying, because they were like, oh, well, Tank is a draw anyway, so what does it matter? We know Tank could sell out arenas at a certain price point. All right. But what Leonard is saying is that as his opponent, you need to be able to draw fans also, because we're going to raise the prices now.
Hold
So
on.
now we know we can sell out the arena, but now we want to make a bigger gate than we normally do. Maybe we
Yeah.
want to try to get a $7 to $8 to $10 million gate now.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, like we say with Deontay Wilder, like Deontay Wilder versus Bermond Severn. is going to command a different price than Deontay Wilder and Tyson Fury. It kind of
Exactly.
like brings up the point that Fat Joe said. Yesterday's price is
Exactly.
not today's price.
Exactly.
All right. So in many cases, a lot of the fans, and sometimes you have some fighters that may slip up and do things that may not make sense as far as like trying to make fights happen. But there in that case with the thing with Terrence Crawford and potentially against Keith Thurman or Errol Spence, and then here with the potential fight between Tank Davis and you know um, Devin Haney, that might not make sense either. And actually, to a certain extent, even right now, a fight between Tank Davis and Ryan Garcia might not make sense because, yeah, both of those fighters are popular, but are they top dollar popular at this point?
I don't think they're at their peak earning potential, but I do think the time for that fight is now because I don't think Ryan's going to be in the game that long.
Yeah, yeah, he don't look like he's really feeling getting himself back into the game like he's completely motivated to get himself back in the game.
Yeah,
So
to me,
yeah,
he's either going to retire early or he's going to get clipped. And if he's going to get clipped, I'm sure Leonard Ellaby will love for it to be Tank Davis to be the one that clip him because that's going
yeah,
to do great business. I did
yep,
find it interesting that Leonard Ellaby came out and stated today that uh, Mayweather Promotions has had preliminary discussions with Peter Khan, who represents George Kambosos, about making Kambosos versus Tank next.
yeah. I mean, they did talk a little bit in public, with Leonard Ellaby and Cambosa Senior and Peter Khan. They talked to a little bit in public. They were very cordial in their dealings, and they probably chatted it up over the phone or through Zoom or something like that to try to make that particular fight. Um, but the thing about it is, it's like maybe there's an outside chance of having that happening because Cambosis, even though he has the status of unified lightweight champion, it's not necessarily big enough for him to kind of like command a high price to where he could, fight in Las Vegas, and y'all could have the fight in Las Vegas for, good enough price point to where Tank makes his money, Cambosis makes his money, and people still would want to see it just to see if, Tank Davis could, dethrone George Cambosis.
Yeah, that'll be pretty interesting. And it would be a change of pace from where people what people think Tank is interested in.
Right.
Um, I think Tank knows and understands that everybody at 135 is food for him. He ain't worried about nobody at 135, so he's just gonna fight whoever could make the best deal,
Yeah.
basically.
I'll put it, I'll fight anybody they put in front of me, but look, Ryan, Cambosis, Haney, they're all easy work.
Yeah,
They're all easy work, So that's
and
kind of
I'll
like
be honest,
how,
I agree with him.
that's kind of, how he's approaching it. I think that it would be a good, opportunity for Tank Davis to, either take advantage of having one of those fights with one of those three guys. But like I said, man, the 135-pound division is gonna be hot.
Yeah,
And
and it's sorting itself out.
yep, definitely is. With that, that's pretty much most of the thing that I see, man. I mean, you got next week Boss Lomachenko, like I said, Lomachenko's going up against Comey over in New York. Uh, you got at Dignity Health Sports Park, Nonito Donaire, and I know you don't really care about Nonito Donaire because
Nope.
like he
I'll be
kidding me?
honest. I didn't know he was fighting until you just mentioned it.
Like, I don't think you would have probably really cared.
Who's he
Uh,
fighting?
he's fighting Ray Gaballo, man.
He can't. Oh man. I hope Gaballo beats his ass.
Oh man, and the bad part about it is that you got him fighting Gaballo, and at the same day you got John Rio Casimiro defending his title against Paul Butler, and everybody's and then Chicken Talk's favorite fighter, Sonny Edwards, is going up against Jason Mama for the flyweight title that he's defending. So
Aquaman.
yeah, man. Oh wow, Jodo Carroll's on that card. Heck,
Who
dang.
cares? You said
Oh,
Jonah Carroll like he was somebody to care about.
oh gosh. What we got? We also got. Oh, you talk about somebody that you probably don't really care about, unfortunately. Dimitri Bivol going up against Umar Salamov.
Hey,
Uh,
I like that matchup.
hey,
I like that matchup. I
hey,
think it's
man.
gonna be interesting. He was the WBO mandatory, right? For Joe Smith.
Oh, Salamov at one
Yeah,
point he was, I think.
he was the WBO mandatory for Joe Smith. So, you know, usually I don't care about that, but these WBO mandatories have been pretty interesting lately.
Yeah, but now I don't know what's going to be, going on there with that particular situation. Like, but I mean, with Salamov going up there against Dimitri Bivol and the situation with Joe Smith Jr. Going on, um, maybe some other thing could open up for that WBO because with Smith, man, he what is didn't he have like scheduling issues whatnot. I mean, he
No, I
got
think he
his
caught
fight against
COVID.
Callum. Yeah, he had the COVID thing, so
And he
now
was
he has.
bad. They say he was real bad,
Yeah,
like on a ventilator.
yeah.
So
So
I'm
he,
surprised he's still fighting.
well, yeah. I guess it was worse off than damn man. What you on a Uber or something, man? Like,
Oh nah, I'm outside.
oh, see,
It's a
yeah,
little
man.
windy outside. It's a lot of weather. Mother Nature. Mother Nature, man.
Yeah, man. Yeah, that Smith is having his defense against Callum Johnson over in Verona next in January. So, he probably still had that plan about him fighting Daniel Jacobs or something, but
No, they said that the plan. Oh God.
or
Oh, who was the plan? It was Callum Johnson and some other bum. Oh my
oh
God.
no, not
Why
some other
why am I
form.
drawing a blank?
Well, he already had the fight against what?
There was someone that fought recently. I think it's a Frank Warren guy.
Uh,
Anthony Yard.
yeah.
Anthony
Since
Yard.
Anthony Yard beat Lyndon
Yes.
Arthur, yeah.
Yeah, the plan was supposed to be Callum Johnson and then Anthony Yard.
Yeah. So yeah, maybe Anthony Yard will try to go after that belt there against Joe Smith Jr. But
Yeah,
Joe Smith
Frank
Jr.
Warren claims that Aram already agreed to it, but Aram is not even really Joe Smith's promoter.
Yeah, he's not. Yeah, he's not.
So I don't know what's up with these dudes, man.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what's going on with
They
them
gotta
either,
talk to
man.
the right people. These British people, man, they don't respect the Muhammad Ali Act.
Yeah, I guess not, man. I guess not. So yeah, that's the whole light heavyweight situation there, man. But
Hey, don't forget we got Better BF versus Brown in 2 weeks.
yeah, better be a Brown.
Can't wait for that.
Yeah.
I need to see what Brown does with Derrick James as his trainer.
Right. And that's over there in Canada. Um Yet another fight in Canada for Archer Beterbiev.
Yeah,
Um
well, at least he's fighting.
yeah.
It's hard enough to get him
Oh,
to fight often.
what is this? The I think this is the final eliminator in the 154 WBA. You got Israel Madrimov against Michelle Soro too. So that's also on the 17th as well. So got a few things that they're trying to get themselves sorted out. They're in that 154-pound division, but yeah, that's kind of there. And yeah, I know that you're not interested in this rematch between Joseph Parker and Derek Chisora. It
No.
really like it doesn't really move the needle in the heavyweight division. So people aren't
I usually
necessarily
love
sure.
heavyweights, but I can't get excited about Joseph Parker. So I think he's a bitch.
Oh,
I'm sorry, I do. Why the fuck are you out there hanging around Tyson Fury like his sidekick? You're supposed to be wanting to fuck him up. I don't like that, man. He's a bitch.
like a not even like a tag team partner, man. Like
Yeah.
he's almost like a hype man or something. Oh my god.
Yeah, fucking New Zealand Flavor Flav.
Oh jeez, man. So so yeah, he ain't even even if he gets this win over Derek Chisora, he ain't gonna. It doesn't look like he may do much with it, man. He's gonna have to. Nah, he's gonna, like you said, man. What did you say about Joseph Parker?
He's a bitch.
I mean, before that, man. Oh God, you said he ain't no killer.
I can't get too excited about him, man.
Oh man.
There's always been something missing with him, man.
Yeah, 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 and he hasn't necessarily fixed it up to this particular point, but
Yeah.
yeah, that's kind of mostly what I wanted to go through here in this particular episode. I know that we got this Jake Paul thing that recently happened. Did talk with or get a question in with Jake Paul, but that was in reference to him working with Most Valuable Promotions and trying to get these fights going here with these other boxers, and also working with Amanda Serrano to try to set up Amanda Serrano versus Katie Taylor for the undisputed lightweight titles. You got Serrano moving up in weight to lightweight here in this particular instance, fighting Miriam Gutierrez, who's a former world title challenger. So you got to see
Don't
how
nobody
she
care about
does.
that.
Of course, you don't care about that.
These goddamn women fighting.
Oh no! See, listen, man, we ain't gonna try to get canceled up
Listen, the
in
only
here.
time I want to see women fighting is if it's over me. Okay, that's it. What, man?
I mean, hey, it is what it is. Hey, man, that will be part of the fight card with with Jake Paul and Tyron Woodley. It's gonna be a rematch, man. Oh, geez, in a couple weeks. Oh man, but that's pretty much it for this version of the Boxing Source Radio Show, man. Pretty much gone over as much as we could here within an hour and 30 minutes. So, uh, thanks for Matt jumping in on this particular episode. Like I say, Point of Boxing is hitting, not get hit, not to stand the trade. On that note, folks, I'm out. Have a good evening,
Bomb
everybody.
squad, baby.